Hello, welcome back to One Truth Ministry. Sorry, it's been a few weeks since I've had a good message. I've been very busy with a lot of things. We are in a very, very intense time in terms of our nation, in terms of our election, and as a church, thanks to the 501c3, we're not actually supposed to talk about elections. Well, since I'm an online one, and I'm going to go ahead and give my endorsement because I believe that's how it's supposed to be. See, when this nation was founded, political candidates, the way they were picked, were they would go in front of the church and the pastors would recommend to the congregation who to elect based on who most followed their code. Well, it's thanks to the 501c3, churches can no longer do that. It's funny, when our country was originally founded, it was a very Christian nation, and the only people who did endorse candidates were churches, and now they're the only ones who can't. And God was very much a part of our country when it first started, and look at how much it thrived. Now we've taken God out, and look at the result. We're $16 trillion in debt. We're over 20 trillion in debt, and we got shootings everywhere. We got, ISIS, attacking us, and, it's really crazy. And looking at this 2016 election, I see a lot of people, especially Christians, that look at both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and say, gosh, you know what? I just really don't like either one of them. I just can't really get behind either one of those ideas, and I understand that. I really, really do. But understand one thing here. I'm not necessarily endorsing a person. I'm endorsing an idea. See, if you find both of these people dislikable, don't invite either one of them over for dinner. That's, perfectly fine and acceptable. I'm not suggesting I will invite either one of them over for dinner. But it's not about the who. It's about the what. The what, let me explain. And this is an important election because we're making a choice here between what God wants and are we going to go towards, the book of Revelations. And let me explain to you. We have one candidate who goes around saying, we're stronger together. Who wants all these deals with all these countries all around the world, and wants all these deals of peace, and says, we're stronger together and all that. That sounds good on the surface. It really does. Who doesn't want world peace? Except one problem. If you read the book of Revelation, when you talk about the Antichrist, you will see that the Antichrist is someone that's not going to be seen as evil and terrible. He's going to be one that it's all about world peace and bringing the world together and having one world government, one world currency, quote unquote, the New World Order. Now, we've heard several presidents in the past mention the New World Order, starting with George Bush, the first one. Bill Clinton uttered the words, so did the second George Bush, so did Obama. And now, we have this candidate now who wants to continue with what the current president has done with a lot of the globalization policies. And that's what globalization is. It's a step towards, the New World Order. So when she talks about stronger together, it sounds good. Except for, is that God's plan? Well, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at what it says in Revelations 13.4. And this is after the idea, after the whole world is together, of one world government. It says, Revelation 13.4. It says, "And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given the authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, who is like the beast, and who can fight against it." So in other words, the beast is serving as the god. And as I was saying, it's going to be someone that symbolizes world peace. Let's skip ahead to 13.8. "And all who dwell on the earth will worship it, everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation in the world book of life of the Sim of Lamb who was slain." So in other words, if you're not saved at that point in time, you're worshiping that dragon, it's going to be very tough times. We're talking about very tough times to live in. Now, we got the other candidate talks about building a wall and keeping illegals out. Now, building a wall, that sounds very divisive, doesn't it? Yes, it does. It sounds terrible, doesn't it? Except one problem. That probably might have been God's plan all along. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look. Ezekiel 22, verses 23 to 30. Let's read what it says. Starting in verse 23. "Again the word of the Lord came to me. Son of man, say to the land, you are a land who has not been cleansed or reigned or in the day of wrath. There is a conspiracy of her princes within her, like the roaring lion tearing its prey. They devour people, take treasures and precious things, and make nasty widows within her. Her priests do violence to my law and profane my holy things. They do not distinguish between the holy and the common. They teach that there is no difference between the unclean and the clean, and they shut their eyes to the keeping of the Sabbaths, so that I am profaned among them. Her officials within her are like wolves tearing their prey, and they will kill people to make unjust gain. Her prophets whitewash the deeds, for them false visions and lying divinations. They say, this is what the sovereign Lord says, when the Lord has not spoken, the people of the land practice extortion, commit robbery, and they oppress the poor and needy, mistreat the foreigner, denying them justice." Now, that exactly sounds like what's going on in America. God gets taken out of a lot of things. They try to do everything they can to remove God from everything. I mean, the 10 Commandments gets removed. We can't even say Merry Christmas anymore. And, things that God said, like, God clearly defined what marriage was, and, this is not a hatred towards gays or anything, but God clearly defined marriage as one man and one woman, and we're redefining God. We're normalizing things that God has called sin. And look at all these Roe versus Wade. That was a total violation of God's law. Thou shalt not kill. You cannot. So that was all the way